Last one for the night. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. Now, I know this is a lot of people's favorite of the series, and I can understand that. It's a really cool movie. These later ones, like 4 and 5, I don't know them as well, so I'm really excited to go back. 4 I know pretty well. 5 I really haven't watched all that many times, so that's going to be a fun one to revisit. But let's stick to this one. Now, we get an Edgar Allan Poe opening, which I feel like a lot of horror movies do that, like Fog and whatnot. It's a good way to start it. I mean, go with the master. We get Patricia Arquette and Lawrence Fishburne added to the mix here. And the guy who plays Neil Gordon also is in Body Double, which is a kick-ass Brian De Palma film, if you haven't seen it. And then we get Heather Langenkamp and John Saxon returning from the original. I feel like that happens a lot with movies that aren't well regarded, because a lot of people are always like, oh, you know, like, I want new stuff. Like, why don't they put out new things? And then they do something new, like Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and they take it in a different direction, or Halloween 3, or Friday the 13th Part 5, or, you know, so on and so forth. And then people are bitching like, what the fuck, man? That's too different. Bring them back. So then in Part 3 here, we get Heather Langenkamp and John Saxon back. In Part 4 of Halloween, we get the return of Michael Myers. In Part 6 of Friday the 13th, it's like Jason lives. Like, it's just, people complain that they want something different. And then when they get it, they're like, no, I want it back. So, whatever. Now, this has a great opening as well. 3 movies in a row, all great openings. I really like just the feel of it, this dreamlike state that she's in, and she goes and she talks to this little girl, and she points at the house, and she walks in. We get to see the house from the first one and the second one. She goes inside, and I think there's one shot in this movie that's completely underappreciated and not talked about. I've never really seen anyone talk about it. Is when she, you know, she looks over at the little girl and she's like, Freddy's home. I like that a lot. But then she like goes in the room and there's all these like bodies, like 20 kids or something, hanging from their necks in this room. And it is a fucking creepy ass shot. I really like that. I really wish they would have focused a little more in that room. We could have spent a couple more, like, I don't know, 20, 30 more seconds in there, because it just was a really cool shot. It's just there and gone. And I feel like that was probably hard to set up, and it looked great. And it's just, I don't know, it's so quick that it's almost, you just don't even have time to focus on it. I was just noticing it this time, like, wow, that was really cool. And then she's like running around. She looks down at the kid, and the kid's like a skeleton, and there's all these bodies hanging. It's just a great shot. Anyway, and I like when Neil is walking down the hallway and we just kind of get an introduction to a lot of the characters. I really like the way they set up the characters, just kind of get their different personalities interacting. Like, one won't talk to him and one won't shut up, and one. It's cool. It's a good opening. It's a good introduction to a lot of the new characters in the movie. And we see that there's like a big string of suicides that's going on from a bunch of kids who are killing themselves because of Freddy, suppose. And Nancy's hair in the opening of this is dreadful. I hate fucking hair like that, Jesus. Now, 2 takes place 5 years after the first one, and this one, I'm guessing, takes place after that. Her dad in this says something in the bar. I couldn't make out what he said. I think he said a specific time frame, maybe 5 years or more. But was pretty young in the first movie. I want to say she's like, you know, she's in high school. I don't know what age she's supposed to be, 16, 15, something like that. So she went all the way through grad school. I don't know how long this takes place after the first. Can someone tell me? I'm curious on that. I like that the gray hair that she gets in the first movie is retained here. And this is our first introduction to Hypnosil, which ended up being a huge plot point in Freddy vs. Jason. It was the smart thing to use in that movie. And the fact that she becomes a dream doctor makes sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense. So I like that they went in that direction. This is a good setup. I think this is a smart move. It took like 6 people to write this movie, but they came up with a good idea. Like, the whole fact of them all being Elm Street children. It just, I don't know. There's something about that. Like, when they're prescribing the Hypnosil to them and they're freaking out and the one kid goes into a coma and all that, I just feel like, why didn't they go to any of their parents? Like, their parents were involved in Freddy's death, right? I mean, that's why he's coming after these specific kids. And every one of them sent them to a mental institution because they didn't want to deal with them. I mean, this is their fault. They didn't listen at all. Like, Nancy's mom listened. Her dad kind of listened and then finally got to see it. But, like, none of these other kids' parents were in. So, I don't know. Like, I just felt like at some point they should have went and talked to these parents. It would have made sense, I feel. And I really like that shot of, like, when Nancy is standing up and she, like, falls through the chair. That was a really cool effect. I'm curious on how they did that. And then we get the Freddy definitely takes on much of more of like a dream master in this movie than in the last couple. Like, in the last couple, he's mostly just him and he can manipulate a little bit. We get like the long arms and him being able to cut his fingers off and stuff like that. But in this one, he takes all sorts of different shapes, and that then reoccurs within the rest of the series. We get that big, long, snake-looking thing, almost like the Beetlejuice-looking snake worm Freddy that like picks her up and like slams her down, and that would have knocked her out. But I really like the look. That was great special effects. There's some fantastic special effects in this film, and that was one of them. Man, that was incredible work right there. And one of the kids in this is like super into what is supposed to be Dungeons and Dragons. I was always that kid that I wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, but I just never made many friends, and the friends I did make really had no interest in it. But that just seems like something I'd be totally into, something geek out on. This movie was reminding me of how much I feel like I missed out on something like that. Now, when Nancy's talking about her mom in this movie, in the last one, it was said that the mother killed herself in the living room. But in this one, she says that her mom died in her sleep. Now, Nancy could just be lying and telling people what she wants to divulge in the moment. But I don't know, like, did they change what happened? Are we just straight up ignoring part 2's existence by her saying that? Like, because the way we see Nancy's mom die in the first movie, the first time is in her bed and she goes down into the bed, and that could be her actual death. But then in part 2, we find out that she died in the living room, which she's pulled through the door into the living room. You're saying, oh, well, then I guess she did die at the end, at the second ending of her, because she died twice in the film. So it's kind of like the second one tells us that the second death in the first movie is her real death, and this one's suggesting that her first death in the first movie is her real death. So what do you guys think? I'm curious. I was watching this being like, that's interesting. Are we just straight up ignoring the first one? Was she lying? But yeah, anyway. The Claymation Freddy, when he turns, like, one of the little dolls turns in and his face like morphs into him and then he like walks around. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Yet again, some really cool effects. And the marionette doll that he makes this kid into, and he like walks him around and he like pulls out all of his like veins and he's using him as a puppet. God, that's gruesome. That is fucking gruesome. Cuts his arms and his legs and pulls all of his shit out and he's just walking him around. That is tough to watch, man. It is gruesome. I love it. How, like, the fact that she's like, we need to start locking the doors after that. It's like, really? These kids are on suicide watch and they're constantly trying to get out. And she even mentions later it's like a high security area. And it's like, he walked through there like nothing. Why weren't their doors locked to begin with? And how the fuck did he get all the way up to the roof without anyone seeing him when he was walking like this like fucking Frankenstein's monster. Like, seriously, no one hurt him? Jesus. And Kincaid's a little bit to blame there. He could have stopped him. He could have woke him up. He could have tackled him, but he was just like, have fun, asshole, or something like that. It was funny. It was just like, dude, Kincaid, and he doesn't feel like any guilt. Like, Kincaid, he doesn't have that moment in the movie where he's like, I saw him leave the room and I couldn't. He's just such a tough guy. I mean, I think it fits his character, but at no point is he like, okay, I kind of feel a little bit responsible for his death, because he kind of should. Just a little. It's not his fault. Freddy killed him. I get that, but you should feel a little guilt. Everyone's favorite line from like any Nightmare on Elm Street movie is "Welcome to prime time, bitch." I really like that scene a lot. I really like him turning into the TV and the face at the top of the TV when he pulls her in. It just all looks just fabulous. And Kristen having the power to pull them all into their dreams is a neat idea. I like that they were able to combine themselves. Just explaining it and showing that she has this power. That was neat. Now, the thing that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and this could be explained away pretty easily, I just was noticing it, was when Dr. Gordon, not from Saw, Dr. Neil Gordon, is hypnotizing them to put them in a dream state. He falls asleep too. And he goes into their dreams, even though he's not a part of the Freddy thing. So she's able to bring anyone she wants into her dreams. And why did he fall asleep when he was hypnotizing? Was that the plan all along, for him to come in with them? Because when he's hypnotizing him, I wouldn't be thinking that he'd be looking into it. But he obviously was, and she is obviously able to pull him in. So I'm not arguing that it's not possible. I just was like, well, shouldn't he be observing? But I do have to say it does make sense for him to come in there so he can be like, okay, I believe you now, which he ends up doing. So it works. But I just watching it being like, would he go in? And does the hypnotist actually hypnotize himself too? And if so, like, isn't like hypnosis something that you have to be taken out of? Like, once you're put in to a dream sleep, like a 5 and clap, and then like, all right, I'm going to bring you out on 5. Isn't that how that works? I don't know. I'm not a hypnotist, but I figure that somebody has to actually bring you out of it if hypnotism works the way that I've seen in the movies, and this is a movie. But yeah. This friggin' kid getting tied up by the tongue. Such a cheesy line. What's wrong? You tongue-tied? It's great, though. And that nurse. Whew. Do you like my body? Yes, I do. So the bastard son of 100 maniacs. I don't know. That's one of those things, and there's a couple things in this movie that I'm not huge on in films, and this is one of them, and the other one is the religious thing, like where he goes and he gets holy water and he buries him on, consecrated ground or whatever. I'm not a huge fan of that. That's why I'm not huge into exorcism movies and this and that. I don't like how they just can so conveniently go grab holy water or put a cross and like, I don't know. It's just silly, and I just want it kind of out of the Freddy movies. I don't want Freddy to be able to be beaten by holy water. Like, this is just stupid to me. This isn't The Exorcist. This is Freddy Krueger. Keep that stuff out of here. It just, for me, it just doesn't match up. It's just not that kind of film, but whatever, it is what it is. But another thing is the fact that they're explaining that Freddy was like, his mother was raped by like 100 crazy people, and this is why he's a crazy person. And it's like, I like my crazy people to just be fucking crazy, because to me that's just terrifying. Like, it's not because people beat you. It's not because people were molesting you, or you saw your mom killed in front of you, or she was raped, or your father was a maniac, or like the lineage thing to me. It's just, I don't know, it takes away from the fact that he's just an abnormality. Like, he's just, nothing made him this way. He's just fucking evil. And I don't know. I feel like this, and I know that this is explored even more in part 5, The Dream Child, They get really into that, if I remember correctly. I don't think it's in the fourth one. It's in the fifth one. I don't know. It's fine. I'm not like sitting here like, that's it. I hate this movie. Stupid. I'm not that kind of person. I can take little things that I don't like and be like, I don't like it, but whatever. I'm not going to let it hurt the film. But it's just something I personally would have not done. But it's all right. And when he cuts the kid open and writes in his chest, like, something, bitch, I can't remember. Fuck. My memory's off right now. I've watched so many damn movies in a row. But he like cuts him open. This is such a stupid gripe. I don't even know why I'm bringing it up. It's not even a gripe, but it's just kind of pointing out, like, why didn't that kid bleed at all when he like completely cut his chest open? Yeah, he would have bled out right there. Did anyone sew him up? Did she just see that because she was in a dream? She wasn't. So I don't know. I'm just sitting there like, does he have those scars on his chest now? Like after when he wakes up and he comes out of it, he didn't seem to be like in a body cast or anything or like have any kind of wrapping around him. So it's just completely ignored. I don't know if that actually happened or what. But and then we find out John Saxon is now a drunk security guard, which makes sense. I mean, he got bumped down from police chief to the security guard. And he has keys to this place, which is an interesting thing. I'm sitting there like, okay, so he's got the keys to this place. Is he the security guard of a company that is affiliated with this, that's been hired by this junkyard? Or is he actually the security guard of that junkyard and he feels like it's his duty to watch over the bones of the maniac that he killed that ended up ruining his family? I was noticing he had the keys and I was like, does that mean he works there? Because that would be an interesting spin on things. Like, he really does give a shit about this. He's not just completely drunk and ignoring his child, which he is doing, but he kind of feeling a sense of duty to protect these bones. From what I have no idea. So I'm not sure where that would go, but kind of like the idea of it. I also really like that Neil gives a shit about the kids. He really cares. And I thought it was going to go in a more romantic sense with Nancy, but that never actually happens. So I don't know if that was something that was being hinted at, because they get pretty close in the bar and he's like, be safe or whatever, and he lets her go and you think they're going to kiss or something, but it doesn't happen. So I don't know if they were hinting at that or not, but it doesn't happen. And yeah, when he talks Saxon into going with him, he lets him drive. He's sitting at the bar completely hammered and he's like, all right, you drive. Like, he doesn't say that, but we see that he's driving and he takes the keys from him and the alcohol, and it's like, why did he even have the keys in the first place? Pretty sure you should have been driving. Kincaid's probably my favorite character in this movie. I just like really strong characters. I love that he has like a Mike Tyson kind of thing going on where he's like this big buff dude and then he's like talks like a girl. He has such a high pitched voice. It's making me laugh. Taryn is freaking hot as hell, and that scene where she's fighting him, she's got her little switchblades and he pulls out his fingers and they're all hypodermic needles, and they look down at her arms and they're like these little thirsty freaking track openings. It was just fucked up, man. Like, she's trying so hard and this guy is like trying to push himself on her sexually earlier in the movie. Like, I got the keys to the kingdom, baby, we can go up there and get high. And she's like, I'm not doing that shit anymore. And then Freddy fucking kills her that way. The poor girl. And then the dorky kid, he freaking is in his little wheelchair and he gets out of it in his dreams, and then Freddy's haunting him with a chair, like this gnarly looking freaking chair, and he's chasing him around with it. And I'm just like, it sucks, man. This kid just can't escape this thing. It ends up being the death of him. It's a bummer just thinking about that. Like, even in your dreams you can't even get away from this damn chair. And when they find Joey, something interesting to think about is that Joey has been hanging there the entire time. So he's been there for hours and like over a day, I think, like a full day, 2 days. Jesus Christ, he's just hanging there by his thing and like fire is burning below him and he's thinking at any moment he could drop. You know how much terror he would be in that whole time? Although I guess maybe dream time is slower or longer, so maybe longer than we think or less thing. I don't know. But I was just like, when they find him, I'm like, oh my God, Joey's still hanging there? That poor fucking little kid. Jesus Christ. The fact that Freddy can take over his own bones and fight them is kind of silly to me because, I don't know, like, why didn't he just then, maybe once someone touched his bones, it like gave him a rim, like made him figure out where they were, like almost like a little homing beacon, like they activated it by touching them. I don't know, but like the fact that he's able to, you know, become like an army of the deadite, it's, I don't know, it's just kind of like, why didn't he just like get out of the trunk and run away? Because he wouldn't want anyone to know where his body was, because he seems to instantly know when they are fucking with his bones, like, oh shit, like they're trying to defeat me, which ends up not even working anyways because a fucking dog pisses him out of there. But let's not get into the fourth movie yet. And the fact that like he knocks Dr. Gordon out and throws him in the ditch, and then he like shovels like a couple freaking shovelfuls of sand, like a dirt on him, and then he's just like, yeah, and then like crumbles to the ground like in Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Fuck that game. I have a long story about that game, but and then he just goes back into the dream, and it's like, you buried him like this much, like he can still breathe, like why didn't you just like jump down there and cut his head off with the shovel? That just seems so stupid. And Nancy dies. I mean, I'm usually against bringing back a main character. Like, I don't want to say like what movies, because I don't want to do spoilers for people who haven't seen those movies, but there's certain franchises where they bring back a main character for a second film many years later, or a third film or something, and then they kill him, and I'm like, oh man, you brought this character back just to kill them? Kind of like in part 4 coming up, where a lot of the people who lived through this one died. And it's like, man, if you wouldn't have made that movie, they would have lived forever in our memories, but now we know they died. That sucks, because when I'm watching this movie, when they survive, I'm like, well, you're just going to die in the next movie, which isn't much longer after this, so that kind of sucks. Anyway, guys, all right, it's time for me to go to bed. Dream Warriors, that was a fun one. I look forward to the Dream Master tomorrow. All right, guys.